The night Liam Carter found a bleeding stranger at his door, he should have called the cops. He didn't. Maybe it was the rain hammering down like judgment, or the way she looked up at him, desperate, broken, but still defiant. Maybe it was stupid. 3 days later, men in black SUVs would surround his daughter's school. 2 weeks after that, he'd be standing in front of cameras with evidence that could dismantle a billion-dollar empire. But that night, he just saw someone who needed help. He had no idea what he was letting in. If you want to see how far this story goes, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments below. The apartment smelled like burnt macaroni and wet laundry. Liam Carter stood at the kitchen counter, stirring pasta that had gone mushy 10 minutes ago, staring at nothing in particular. The fluorescent light overhead flickered. It had been doing that for 2 weeks. He kept meaning to fix it. "Dad, is it ready yet?" Emma's voice cut through the noise of the rain battering the window. She sat cross-legged on the couch, her tablet propped on her knees, headphones halfway off one ear. 7 years old, gap-toothed, too smart for her own good. "Almost, kiddo. You said that like 5 minutes ago." "Well, now it's almost her." She rolled her eyes. He loved that she did that. Meant she wasn't scared of him, wasn't walking on eggshells. Some days that felt like the only thing he'd gotten right. He drained the pasta, burned his thumb on the pot handle, swore under his breath. Emma didn't look up. She'd heard worse. The rain hadn't let up all day. Seattle was used to rain, but this was different. Harder, meaner, the kind that made you feel like the sky had a grudge. The windows rattled. The building was old, one of those places where the rent was just low enough that you didn't ask too many questions about the plumbing or the guy in 3B who never made eye contact. Liam dumped the pasta into 2 bowls, added butter because that's all he had, brought one over to Emma. "Thanks." She took it without looking away from her screen. "What are you watching?" "A girl who makes slime." "Why?" "I don't know. It's satisfying." He sat down next to her, eating straight from the bowl, not bothering with the table. The couch sagged under his weight. Another thing he kept meaning to fix. They ate in silence. Outside, the storm got louder. Then he heard it, a thump. Faint, but distinct, like something heavy hitting the floor. He stopped chewing. "Did you hear that?" Emma shook her head, headphones back on. Liam set his bowl down, stood up, walked to the door, listened. Nothing. He turned the lock, cracked the door open. The hallway was dim, one bulb out at the far end. Water dripped from a ceiling stain he'd reported 3 times. And there, just outside his door, crumpled against the wall like someone had thrown her there, was a woman. She was young, mid-20s maybe, soaked through, hair plastered to her face, jacket torn at the shoulder. Her jeans were muddy, her hands scraped raw, and her side, there was blood. Not a lot, but enough. "Jesus." She looked up at him. Her eyes were dark, wide, searching his face like she was trying to decide if he was the next problem or the last hope. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely there. "Please don't call anyone." Liam glanced down the hallway. Empty. He looked back at her. "You need a hospital." "No." She tried to stand, couldn't. Her legs buckled. "No hospitals, no police, please." He should have closed the door, should have walked back inside, locked it, pretended he hadn't seen anything. That's what you did in a neighborhood like this. You minded your business. But Emma's voice floated out from the living room. "Dad? Who is it?" The woman's eyes flicked past him, toward the sound. Something in her expression shifted, softer, sadder. "You have a kid," she said. "Yeah. Then you understand." She swallowed, winced. "You understand why I can't go back." He didn't understand, not yet, but something in the way she said it made him pause. "Who's after you?" "People who don't stop." That's not an answer. "It's the only one I've got." Liam stood there, rain soaking into his socks from the puddle spreading under her, every instinct screaming at him to shut the door. Instead, he stepped aside. "Come on." She stared at him like she didn't believe it. "Before I change my mind," he added. She dragged herself up, one hand braced against the wall, the other clutched to her side. He reached out, steadied her. She flinched but didn't pull away. Inside, Emma looked up from the couch, eyes going wide. "Whoa! Emma, go to your room." "But now." She didn't argue, just grabbed her tablet and disappeared down the hall, glancing back once before closing the door. Liam guided the woman to the couch, eased her down. She hissed through her teeth, pressing her hand harder against her side. "Let me see." "It's fine. You're bleeding on my couch. Let me see." She hesitated, then moved her hand. The jacket was torn, the shirt underneath soaked red. Not a gush, but steady. He pulled the fabric aside, careful, and saw the gash, shallow, maybe 3 inches long, like something sharp had caught her as she ran. "What happened?" "I fell." "Onto what, a knife?" She didn't answer. He stood up, went to the bathroom, grabbed the first aid kit he kept under the sink. It was mostly Band-Aids and expired ibuprofen, but there was gauze. He came back, knelt in front of her. "This is gonna hurt." "Everything already does." He cleaned the wound as best he could, hands steadier than he expected. She didn't make a sound, just stared at the wall, jaw tight. "You should still see a doctor," he said. "I can't." Because the people looking for me have access to hospital records." He paused, gauze halfway to the wound. "What kind of people?" She met his eyes. "The kind you don't say no to." He finished wrapping the bandage, sat back on his heels. "You got a name?" "Sophie." "Sophie what?" "Just Sophie." "Okay, just Sophie. I'm Liam, and you need to tell me what I just let into my house." She leaned back, closed her eyes. For a second he thought she might pass out. Then she spoke, quiet, like she was too tired to lie anymore. "My father's a very powerful man. Controls a lot of things. Money, people, outcomes." She opened her eyes. "I found out he's been doing things that aren't just unethical, they're illegal. And I was stupid enough to think I could do something about it." "What kind of illegal?" "The kind that ruins lives, quietly, efficiently." She laughed, bitter. "I thought if I brought proof to the right people, someone would care. Turns out the right people are on his payroll." "So you ran." "So I ran." Liam sat down on the coffee table across from her, elbows on his knees. "And now he's looking for you." "Now he's erasing me." The way she said it, flat, certain, made his stomach turn. "Why'd you come here?" "I didn't. I was just running. Your door was the first one I saw." "Lucky me." She almost smiled. "Almost." "Yeah, lucky you." Emma's door creaked open. She poked her head out, looked at Sophie, then at Liam. "She okay?" "She's fine, Em." "She doesn't look fine." Sophie turned toward her, and for the first time since she'd stumbled in, her expression softened. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just had a bad day." Emma stepped into the hallway, arms crossed. "Are you staying?" Liam opened his mouth, but Sophie answered first. "Just for tonight, if that's okay." Emma looked at Liam. He sighed. "Just for tonight," he echoed. Emma nodded, satisfied, and went back to her room. Liam stood up, ran a hand through his hair. "You can take the couch. I'll get you a blanket." "Thank you." "Don't. I don't know what I'm doing yet." He went to the hall closet, pulled out the extra blanket that smelled faintly of dust, brought it back. Sophie was already lying down, eyes half closed. "You hungry?" he asked. "No." "When's the last time you ate?" She didn't answer. He went to the kitchen, dumped the rest of the pasta into a bowl, brought it over, set it on the coffee table. "Eat." "I said I'm not. I don't care. Eat." She looked at the bowl, then at him. Then she sat up, slowly, and picked up the fork. He watched her take the first bite, then turned away, went to check on Emma. She was in bed, tablet on her nightstand, stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. "Is she in trouble?" Emma asked. "Yeah." "Are we going to help her?" Liam sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know yet." "She seems sad." "She does." Emma looked up at him, eyes serious. "Mom used to look like that sometimes." His chest tightened. He reached out, brushed the hair off her forehead. "Yeah, she did." "You helped Mom." "That was different." "How?" He didn't have an answer for that, so he just kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and closed the door behind him. When he came back to the living room, Sophie was asleep, bowl empty, blanket pulled up to her chin. She looked smaller like that, younger, vulnerable. He stood there for a long time, staring at her, trying to figure out what he'd just done. Then he locked the door, checked the windows, and went to bed. The next morning, Sophie was gone. Liam woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds, the storm finally over. He walked into the living room and the couch was empty. Blanket folded, bowl washed and left in the dish rack. No note, no sign she'd ever been there except the faint smell of rain and blood. Emma shuffled out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Where'd she go?" "I don't know." "Do you think she's okay?" Liam looked at the door, then at his daughter. "I hope so." He made breakfast, got Emma ready for school, walked her to the bus stop. Everything normal. Except it wasn't. Because when he got back to the apartment, Sophie was sitting on the steps outside, arms wrapped around her knees, looking like she'd been there for hours. She looked up when she saw him. "I tried to leave," she said. "I got halfway down the block, and then I realized I don't have anywhere else to go." He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "So you came back?" "So I came back." "Why?" "Because you didn't ask for anything. You didn't call the cops. You didn't make me explain myself. You just—" She stopped, swallowed. "You just helped. I gave you a couch and some shitty pasta. That's not help. That's basic decency." "Yeah, well, turns out that's pretty rare." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he sat down next to her on the step. "If you stay, people might come looking. They will come looking. That puts me and Emma at risk." "I know." "So why would I say yes?" She turned to him and her eyes were clear, steady. "Because you already did. Last night, when you opened that door, you already chose." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he hadn't chosen anything, that she needed to leave before this got worse. But she wasn't wrong. He had chosen. "You got any skills?" he asked. "Excuse me?" "Skills. Job skills. Because if you're staying, you're working. I'm not running a charity." She blinked. Then slowly she smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. "I can do spreadsheets. Research. I'm good with numbers." "Great. You can help me figure out why my taxes are fucked." She laughed. Actual, real laughter. It sounded strange coming from someone who'd been bleeding on his floor 12 hours ago. "Deal," she said. He stood up, offered her his hand. She took it. "One rule," he said. "You don't lie to me. Not about the big stuff." "Okay." "And you don't put Emma in danger. If that changes, you're gone. No second chances." "Understood." He pulled her to her feet. "Welcome to the worst decision I've ever made," he said. "I'll try to make it worth it." The first few days were strange. Sophie slept on the couch, stayed quiet, kept to herself. She helped with dishes, folded laundry without being asked, fixed the flickering light in the kitchen with a YouTube tutorial and a screwdriver. Emma warmed to her immediately. Kids had a way of doing that, seeing past the mess to whatever was underneath. "Do you like drawing?" Emma asked one afternoon, sprawled on the floor with her markers. Sophie sat cross-legged next to her. "I used to." "Why'd you stop?" "Got busy, I guess." "That's sad." "Yeah, it is." Emma handed her a marker. "You can draw with me if you want." And just like that, Sophie was part of the routine. Liam watched it happen, cautious, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it didn't. Not yet. A week in, Sophie started talking more. Not about her father, not about what she was running from. Just small things. How she liked her coffee. That she'd never learned to cook. That she missed the ocean. "Seattle's got ocean," Liam said. "Not the same." "Where'd you grow up?" "California. Malibu, mostly." "Fancy." It was. Didn't make it home. He didn't push. She'd tell him when she was ready. 2 weeks in, Emma came home from school upset. Some kid had made fun of her shoes. Sophie sat with her on the couch, listening, nodding in all the right places. "You know what I do when people are mean?" Sophie said. "What?" "I remember that their opinion doesn't change who I am. Only I get to decide that." Emma thought about it. "That's hard, though." "Yeah, it is. But you're tougher than you think." Liam stood in the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes, listening to every word. That night, after Emma was asleep, he and Sophie sat on the couch, the TV on low, neither of them really watching. "You're good with her," he said. "She's easy to be good with." "Still, thank you." Sophie looked at him, surprised. "For what?" "For being here. For not making this harder than it has to be." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I haven't told you everything. I know. You're not going to ask? You'll tell me when you're ready. She studied his face like she was trying to figure out if he meant it. My father's name is Richard Lane, she said finally. He owns Lane Enterprises. Real estate, tech investments, private equity. Net worth somewhere north of $2 billion. Liam let out a low whistle. And you're sitting on my shitty couch eating ramen. Yeah. Why? Because none of it was real. The houses, the cars, the people who smiled at me, they were all part of a system he built. And I didn't see it until I started looking at the books. What'd you find? Money laundering, offshore accounts, payments to people who make problems disappear. She wrapped her arms around herself. I found proof that he paid someone to bury a lawsuit, not settle it, bury it. The woman who filed it? She's gone. Just vanished. Liam's jaw tightened. And you thought you could take that to the cops? I thought I could take it to the FBI. Turns out half of them are on his payroll, too. So you ran. So I ran. He leaned back, stared at the ceiling. You know he's not going to stop looking. I know. And you know staying here puts a target on us. I know that, too. Then why are you still here? She looked at him, and for the first time he saw past the fear and the exhaustion to something else. Something stubborn. Because I'm tired of running, and because I think you might be the first person in a long time who doesn't want something from me. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. We'll figure it out, he said. You don't have to. I said we'll figure it out. She smiled, small, sad, but real. Okay. 3 days later, the SUV showed up. Liam was walking Emma home from the bus stop when he saw it. Black tinted windows, parked across the street, engine running. He slowed down, kept his hand on Emma's shoulder. Dad? It's fine. Keep walking. They made it to the building. He glanced back. The SUV was still there. Inside, Sophie was in the kitchen, drying dishes. She looked up when they came in, saw his face, and her expression changed. What is it? We've got company. Her face went pale. Where? Across the street. Black SUV. She moved to the window, careful, peeking through the blinds, her breath caught. That's one of his. You sure? I'm sure. Liam looked at Emma, who was watching them with wide eyes. Em, go to your room. But now. She ran. Liam turned to Sophie. How long do we have? I don't know. They're probably just watching, for now. And when they stop watching? She didn't answer. He locked the door, checked the windows, tried to think. His mind was racing, running through options, none of them good. We need to leave, Sophie said. Where? I don't know. Anywhere but here. Emma's got school. I've got work. We can't just disappear. If we stay, they'll come in. And when they do what? What happens? She looked at him, and he saw it in her eyes. The thing she hadn't said. They'll take me, and anyone who helped me. Her voice cracked. That's how he works. He doesn't just erase me. He erases everyone who knew. Liam felt something cold settle in his chest. Okay, he said. Okay, what? Okay, we leave. Liam, you said it yourself. We don't have a choice. She stared at him, and for a second he thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He went to Emma's room, found her sitting on the bed, rabbit clutched tight. Are we in trouble? She asked. He sat down next to her, tried to keep his voice calm. We need to go away for a little while. Why? Because it's not safe here right now. Because of Sophie? Yeah, because of Sophie. Emma looked down at her rabbit, then back at him. Are we going to help her? He thought about the SUV, about the men inside, about everything that could go wrong. Then he thought about the way Sophie had sat with Emma, teaching her to draw again, the way she'd folded the laundry without being asked, the way she'd said, "You're tougher than you think." Yeah, he said, we're going to help her. Emma nodded, solemn. Okay. He kissed her forehead, stood up. Pack a bag, just clothes, and your rabbit. Where are we going? I don't know yet. He went back to the living room. Sophie was still by the window, watching the SUV. "We need a plan," he said. "I have one." "What is it?" She turned to him, and her expression was different now, harder, determined. "We stop running," she said, "and we fight back." He stared at her. "How?" "I still have the files, copies, everything I found. If we can get them to the right people—" "You said the right people are on his payroll." "Not all of them." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts. "There's a journalist, investigative. She's been trying to dig into my father for years. If I give her what I have, he'll bury her too. Not if it's already public, not if it's everywhere before he can react." Liam ran a hand over his face. This was insane. This was suicide. But what was the alternative? Keep running? Hide Emma in motel rooms and hope they didn't get found? "All right," he said. "Let's do it." Sophie exhaled, relief flooding her face. Okay, I'll call her. Set up a meeting." "Where?" "Somewhere public. Somewhere he can't make us disappear. And in the meantime, we leave, tonight." He nodded, went to pack. An hour later, they were in his car, a beat-up Honda with a busted taillight and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. Emma in the back, Sophie in the passenger seat, bag shoved in the trunk. The SUV was still there. Liam started the engine, pulled out of the parking spot. The SUV didn't move. He drove. Slow, steady, like he had nothing to hide. 2 blocks later, the SUV pulled out behind them. "They're following," Sophie said quietly. "I know." "What do we do?" "We don't panic." He took a left. The SUV followed. Took another left. Still there. Emma's voice from the back seat, small and scared. "Dad?" "It's okay, baby. We're okay." He took a right, accelerated, wove through traffic. The SUV kept pace. Sophie's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went white. "It's him." "Your father?" "Yeah." "Don't answer." "He knows I'm with you." "How?" "I don't know. He knows everything." The phone kept buzzing. Liam's mind raced. They needed to lose the SUV, needed to get somewhere safe. He saw the highway entrance, made a split-second decision, swerved onto the ramp. The SUV followed. He floored it. The Honda shuddered, protested, but accelerated. 60, 70, 80. The SUV kept up. "This isn't working," Sophie said. "I know." He scanned the road, looking for an exit, a side street, anything. Then he saw it. Construction zone. Barriers up, lanes merged, traffic slowing. He didn't slow down. "Liam, what are you—" He cut across 2 lanes, shot through a gap in the barriers, onto a side road that wasn't supposed to be open yet. The SUV tried to follow. Didn't make it. Got stuck behind the merge. Liam kept driving, didn't look back. 5 minutes later, they were on a back road, the city disappearing behind them. Emma was crying quietly in the back seat. Sophie was gripping the door handle, knuckles white. Liam's hands were shaking, but they were alive. "We're okay," he said, more to himself than to them. "We're okay." Sophie looked at him, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked scared. "What do we do now?" He didn't have an answer, but he kept driving. They ended up at a motel an hour outside the city. The kind of place that didn't ask for ID if you paid cash. Liam got them a room with 2 beds, locked the door, pulled the curtains. Emma fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted. Sophie sat on the edge of the other bed, staring at her phone. "You gonna call her?" Liam asked. "The journalist?" "Yeah, in the morning." "And if it doesn't work?" "Then we're out of options." He sat down across from her. "I need you to be honest with me. Is this gonna end?" She looked up at him, and her eyes were tired. So tired. "I don't know," she said. "But I'm done running. Whatever happens next, I'm done." He nodded. They sat there in silence, the motel's neon sign flickering outside the window, casting strange shadows on the wall. And for the first time since she'd collapsed outside his door, Liam wondered if he'd made the right choice. But it was too late to turn back now. The motel room smelled like cigarettes and disinfectant. Liam lay on top of the covers, still dressed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Every car that passed outside made his pulse spike. Every footstep in the hallway turned his stomach. Sophie was curled up in the chair by the window, phone clutched in her hand, screen dark. She hadn't moved in an hour. Emma slept between them, one small hand wrapped around her rabbit's ear, breathing soft and even. The only sound in the room that didn't feel like a threat. "You should sleep," Sophie said quietly. "Can't." "Me neither." He turned his head to look at her. In the dim light from the parking lot, she looked younger, or maybe just more breakable. "How long were you planning this?" he asked. "Before you ran." She was quiet for a long time. 6 months. Maybe longer. I kept thinking I'd find a way to fix it from the inside. Keep my head down, play along, wait for the right moment. She laughed, bitter. Turns out there's no right moment. There's just the moment you can't stomach it anymore. What was the breaking point? There was a man, a whistleblower, someone who worked for one of my father's subsidiaries. He came forward with allegations, fraud, safety violations, the kind of thing that ruins companies. My father had him silenced. Not fired. Silenced. She looked at Liam, and her eyes were hard. I saw the payment records. $200,000 to make him go away. And 3 weeks later, the guy's car went off a bridge. Liam felt something cold slide down his spine. "You think your father—" "I don't think. I know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I went to the authorities. Or I tried to. But every door I knocked on was already locked from the inside. Every person I trusted turned out to be on his payroll. And then he called me into his office, sat me down, poured me a drink like we were celebrating something. And he said, 'Sophie, sweetheart, you're going to stop asking questions. Because if you don't, I'm going to have to make some very difficult decisions. And I don't want to do that. Not to you.' He threatened you." "He promised me." Her voice cracked. "He looked me in the eye and promised that if I didn't fall in line, I'd disappear too. Just like the whistleblower. Just like everyone else who got in his way. So you ran." "So I ran. And I took everything I could carry. Financial records, emails, wire transfers. Every piece of evidence I could copy before he realized I was gone." She pulled a small USB drive from her pocket, held it up. "It's all here. Everything." Liam stared at the drive. Something that small. Something that could bring down an empire or get them all killed. "And you think this journalist can help?" "I think she's the only shot we have. Her name's Marissa Grant. She's been investigating my father for years. Every time she gets close, something happens. Sources disappear. Evidence vanishes. But she keeps digging." Sophie slipped the drive back into her pocket. "If anyone can get this out before he buries it, it's her." "When are you meeting her?" "Tomorrow, noon, a coffee shop downtown. Public place. As public as I can make it." He sat up, rubbed his face. His whole body ached. "And what happens after? Say she runs the story. Say it goes viral, FBI gets involved, your father goes down. Then what?" Sophie looked at him for a long moment. "Then I testify. I go on record. And I probably spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. That's not a life. It's more than I have now." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her there had to be another way, but he was too tired to lie. "Get some sleep," he said. "I'll keep watch." "Liam," I said, "I'll keep watch." She hesitated, then nodded, moved to the bed, lay down on top of the covers next to Emma. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. Liam stayed awake, watching the parking lot, watching the door, watching the clock. Morning came slow and gray. They were back on this road by 8. Emma woke up groggy and confused, asking where they were, why they couldn't go home. Liam gave her a granola bar and a juice box and told her they were on an adventure. She didn't look convinced. Sophie was quiet, focused. She'd pulled her hair back, put on sunglasses she'd found in the glove compartment, trying to look like someone else. It almost worked. They hit traffic on the way back into the city. Liam kept checking the mirrors, looking for the black SUV. Didn't see it. Didn't relax. "Where's the coffee shop?" he asked. "Pike Place Market, corner of First and Pike. Tourist Central. That's the idea." They parked 3 blocks away, walked the rest. Emma held Liam's hand tight, pressing close to his side every time someone passed. Sophie walked a step ahead, eyes scanning every face, every car, every doorway. The market was crowded. Tourists with cameras, locals grabbing produce, street performers on every corner, noise and movement, and too many people to track. The coffee shop was small, tucked between a flower stall and a place that sold handmade jewelry. Sophie paused at the entrance, took a breath. "You don't have to come in," she said. "Yes, I do." "Liam, you think I'm letting you walk in there alone after everything?" She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then she nodded. Inside, the shop was warm, smelled like espresso and cinnamon. A handful of tables, most of them full. Sophie scanned the room, then gestured to a woman sitting alone in the back corner. Marissa Grant was in her 40s, short dark hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a leather jacket and had a laptop open in front of her. When she saw Sophie, she closed it. "Sophie Lane," Marissa said. Not a question. "That's me." Marissa's gaze flicked to Liam, then Emma. "Who are they?" "Friends. Friends don't usually bring kids to meetings like this." "He's helping me." "The kid's his daughter, non-negotiable." Marissa studied them for a moment, then gestured to the empty chairs. "Sit." They sat. Emma climbed into Liam's lap, rabbit tucked under her arm. Sophie pulled the USB drive from her pocket, set it on the table. Marissa stared at it like it might explode. "That's it? That's it. How do I know it's real?" "You don't. Not until you look." Marissa picked up the drive, turned it over in her hands. "If this is real, your father's going to come after me." "He's already coming after me." "Yeah, I can see that." Marissa slipped the drive into her bag. "You look like hell, by the way." "Thanks. How long have you been running?" 3 weeks, give or take." "And you've managed to stay ahead of him this long?" "Barely." Marissa leaned back, arms crossed. "I've been chasing Richard Lane for 5 years. Every source I've had either disappears or recants. Every document I get my hands on turns out to be fabricated. He's untouchable. You know that, right?" "I know what he wants people to think." "No, I mean he's actually untouchable. Money, connections, favors owed. He's got half the city in his pocket and the other half too scared to talk." "Then why are you here?" Marissa smiled, thin, sharp. "Because I'm tired of losing." Sophie leaned forward. "How long will it take you to verify what's on that drive?" "Depends on what's there. If it's as good as you say, a week, maybe 2. "We don't have 2 weeks." "Then you better hope I work fast." Marissa pulled out a business card, slid it across the table. "That's my number, burner phone. Don't call unless it's an emergency." "Everything's an emergency right now. Then prioritize." Marissa stood up, shouldered her bag. "Stay out of sight. Don't go home. Don't use credit cards. Don't talk to anyone you don't absolutely trust." She looked at Liam. "And you? Whatever she told you about her father? It's worse. So if you're smart, you'll walk away now." Liam met her gaze, didn't blink. "I'm not smart." Marissa almost smiled. "Yeah, I can see that." She turned back to Sophie. "I'll be in touch." And then she was gone. Liam exhaled, felt the tension drain out of his shoulders. Emma squirmed in his lap. "Can we get a muffin?" she asked. He looked at her, this small, perfect person who had no idea how close they were to the edge, and nodded. "Yeah, kiddo, we can get a muffin." They stayed at the coffee shop for another 20 minutes. Sophie picked at a scone she didn't eat. Liam drank bad coffee and watched the door. When they finally left, the market felt different. Too bright. Too loud. Like everyone was watching. They made it halfway back to the car before Sophie stopped. "We're being followed." Liam turned, scanned the crowd, didn't see anything. "Where?" "Gray jacket, ball cap, 30 feet back." He looked again. Saw him. Nondescript. Blending in, eyes locked on them. "How long?" "Since we left the shop." "One of your fathers?" "Probably." Liam's mind raced. If they ran, he'd follow. If they confronted him, he'd call for backup. If they did nothing, "Keep walking," he said. "Normal pace. Don't look back." They walked, past the fish market, past the tourists taking photos, past the guy playing guitar for tips. The man in the gray jacket stayed 30 feet back. "He's not trying to grab us," Sophie said quietly. "Just watching." "Why?" "Because he wants to know where we're going. Who were meeting? They reached the car. Liam unlocked it, got Emma inside, glanced back. The man was still there, watching. Get in, Liam said. Sophie hesitated. If we lead him back to the motel. We're not going back to the motel. He pulled out of the parking spot, merged into traffic. The man in the gray jacket was already getting into a sedan 2 cars back. Where are we going? Sophie asked. Somewhere crowded. He drove to Northgate Mall, parked in the middle of a packed lot, grabbed Emma's hand. What are we doing? Emma asked. Shopping. For what? Anything. Inside the mall was chaos. Families, teenagers, people killing time. Perfect. Liam led them through the food court, past the department stores, into a JCPenney, out the back entrance into the parking garage. Circled back through Target, out another side door. 20 minutes later, they were 3 blocks away, no tail in sight. Sophie stared at him. How did you... Used to work security? Retail. You learn how to spot someone who's following you. He looked at Emma. You okay, kiddo? She nodded, wide-eyed. Are we still shopping? No, we're done. They got back in the car, drove aimlessly for an hour, making sure they'd lost him. Finally pulled into a different motel, this one on the outskirts, next to a truck stop. Same routine. Cash. No ID. Lock the door. Lock. Emma crashed on the bed, exhausted from the adrenaline. Liam stood by the window, keeping watch. Sophie sat on the floor, back against the wall, head in her hands. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For all of this. For dragging you into it. For putting Emma in danger. You didn't drag me. I chose. You chose because you're a good person, and good people get destroyed by men like my father. He turned to look at her. You really believe that? I've seen it happen. Yeah, well, maybe this time's different. She looked up at him, eyes red. What if it's not? What if Marissa can't do anything with those files? What if she gets scared and buries them like everyone else? Then we find another way. There is no other way, Liam. Don't you get it? He's too big, too powerful. This isn't some movie where the underdog wins because they fought hard enough. This is real life. And in real life, people like him don't lose. He crossed the room, crouched down in front of her. Maybe not. But you said you were done running. So if we're doing this, we do it all the way. No backing out, no giving up. She stared at him, and for a second he thought she might break. But then she nodded. Okay? Okay. He stood up, offered her his hand. She took it. They sat together on the edge of the bed, Emma asleep between them, the TV on low playing some mindless sitcom neither of them watched. Why are you doing this? Sophie asked after a while. Doing what? Risking everything. For someone you barely know. He thought about it. Thought about the way Emma had looked at Sophie that first night, the way she'd said you helped Mom. Thought about the apartment that smelled like burnt macaroni, the flickering light he'd never fixed, the life he'd been living on autopilot. Because it's the right thing to do, he said. And because I'm tired of being scared all the time. You don't seem scared. He laughed, low and bitter. I'm terrified, but that doesn't mean I get to walk away. She looked at him, and something shifted in her expression, softer, more open. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. She smiled, small, sad, but real. Too late. They sat there until the sun went down, until Emma woke up asking for dinner, until the world outside the window went dark. And for a few hours, they almost felt safe. The call came 3 days later. They'd been hiding out, moving between motels, living on gas station food, and whatever cash Liam had left. Emma was getting restless, asking when they could go home, when she could go back to school. Liam didn't have answers. Sophie's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. It's Marissa. Liam sat up. Sophie's hand tightened around the phone. What did you find? Everything you said was there, and more. Wire transfers, shell companies, NDAs backed by threats. Your father's been running a criminal enterprise for at least a decade. Maybe longer. Sophie's breath caught. Can you run it? I can, but there's a problem. What? I need you to go on record. I need your name attached to this. Otherwise, it's just leaked documents, anonymous sources, easy to discredit. I'll do it. Sophie, if you do this, there's no going back. Your father will know it was you, and he will come after you with everything he has. I know. I'm serious. This isn't just about exposing him. This is about making sure you survive long enough to testify. I understand. Marissa was quiet for a moment. There's a federal prosecutor I trust, Marcus Webb. He's been trying to build a case against your father for years. If I can get these files to him, if you agree to cooperate, he can offer you protection. Witness protection? Something like that. You'd have to disappear. New name, new life. But you'd be safe. Sophie looked at Liam, then at Emma, still coloring on the bed, oblivious. What about them? They're not part of the case. They don't qualify. Sophie's face went pale. Then I can't do it. Sophie, I said I can't. If I disappear, my father will go after them. You know that. Then bring them with you. They come forward too. You all testify. Liam's stomach dropped. Wait. It's the only way I can guarantee your safety, Marissa said. All of you, together, or none of you. Sophie looked at him, and he saw the apology in her eyes. Liam, you don't have to... Yeah, he said quietly. I do. What about Emma? He looked at his daughter, 7 years old, gap-toothed, clutching her rabbit. The only thing in his life that mattered. She comes with us, he said. We stay together. Marissa exhaled. All right, I'll set up a meeting with Webb. Tomorrow, Federal Building downtown. Can you make it? We'll be there. Good. And Liam? Yeah? Don't let her out of your sight, not for a second. The line went dead. Liam set the phone down, ran a hand through his hair. His heart was pounding. I'm sorry, Sophie said again. Stop apologizing. I said stop. He looked at her. We're in this now, so let's finish it. She nodded, eyes shining. Emma looked up from her drawing. Dad, what's happening? He crossed the room, sat down next to her. We're going to help Sophie, for real this time. How? By telling the truth about some bad things her dad did. Emma thought about it. Will that make him stop? I hope so. And then can we go home? He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Yeah, kiddo, then we can go home. He hoped he wasn't lying. The next morning, they drove into the city. Liam kept checking the mirrors, looking for tails, didn't see any, didn't trust it. The Federal Building was downtown, glass and concrete, imposing. They parked in a nearby garage, walked the last 3 blocks. Inside, security was tight. Metal detectors, ID checks, armed guards. Marissa was waiting for them in the lobby. You made it. Barely. Webb's upstairs, 5th floor. He's expecting you. They took the elevator. Emma held Liam's hand tight, looking around with wide eyes. Sophie was pale, jaw set. Marcus Webb was a tall black man in his 50s, graying at the temples, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than Liam's car. His office was neat, organized, everything in its place. He shook their hands, gestured for them to sit. Ms. Lane, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us. I've reviewed the documents Ms. Grant provided. They're compelling. If even half of what's there holds up in court, your father's looking at 20 years. Minimum. Sophie exhaled. So you'll take the case? I'll take the case. But I need your full cooperation. That means depositions, testimony, possibly months of preparation, and it means putting yourself in the crosshairs. I know. Webb looked at Liam. And you're willing to testify? You understand the risks? I understand. And your daughter? She doesn't testify. That's non-negotiable. Agreed. But she'll need to be in protective custody with you, all of you together, until this is over. How long? 6 months, maybe a year. Liam felt the weight of it settle on his chest. A year. A year of hiding, of living in limbo, of Emma growing up scared. But what was the alternative? We'll do it, he said. Webb nodded. Then we start now. I'll have agents escort you to a safe house. You'll stay there until the arraignment. When's that? 2 weeks, assuming we can get a grand jury indictment. Sophie leaned forward. What are the odds? Webb smiled, grim. With what you've given me? Pretty damn good. They left the Federal Building with 2 agents, a man named Torres and a woman named Huang, both armed, both professional, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The safe house was an hour outside the city, tucked into the woods. No neighbors for miles. It was small, clean, anonymous. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room with bars on the windows. Emma looked around, unimpressed. This isn't home. It's temporary, Liam said. How temporary? I don't know yet. She crossed her arms, pouting. He didn't blame her. Torres and Huang did a sweep, checked the perimeter, set up surveillance. Then Torres pulled Liam aside. You stay inside unless we say otherwise. No phones, no internet, no contact with anyone outside, understand? Yeah. If something happens, if someone finds you, you get your daughter and you hide. We'll handle the rest. And if you can't? Torres looked at him, expression flat. Then you run. That night, Liam lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, listening to Emma breathe in the room next door. Sophie was downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. He got up, went down, found her holding a cup of cold coffee. Can't sleep? He asked. No. He sat down across from her. You okay? I don't know. I keep thinking about what happens next. If this works, if my father goes to prison, if I actually get to walk away from this alive. She looked at him. I keep thinking about what I owe you. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything, Liam. You had a life. It wasn't perfect, but it was yours, and I took it away. You didn't take anything. I gave it. Why? He thought about it, about the question she'd asked before, about the real answer, the one he hadn't said out loud yet. Because I was drowning, he said quietly. Before you showed up. I was going through the motions, pretending I was fine, pretending I had it together for Emma. But I didn't. I was barely holding on. And then you knocked on my door, and suddenly I had a reason to fight again. Not just survive, fight. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. That's a terrible reason to risk your life. He smiled. Maybe. But it's the truth. She reached across the table, took his hand. He let her. They sat there in the dark, holding on, 2 broken people trying to put each other back together. And for the first time in a long time, Liam felt like maybe they could. The days in the safe house blurred together. Same walls, same routine, same suffocating quiet. Liam tried to keep Emma entertained. Board games Torres brought from town, coloring books, movies on a laptop with no internet connection. She went along with it at first, but by day 5 the cracks were showing. I miss my room, she said one morning, picking at her cereal. I know. And my friends. And Miss Patterson. Who's Miss Patterson? My teacher. She looked up at him, eyes accusatory. You didn't even know that. He felt the guilt settle heavy in his chest. You're right. I'm sorry. When can I go back to school? Soon. That's what you said yesterday. I know. She pushed the bowl away, crossed her arms. I don't like it here. Me neither, kiddo. Then why are we staying? He didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the world outside isn't safe? That staying here, trapped and miserable, was the better option? Sophie appeared in the doorway, hair pulled back, looking as tired as he felt. Hey, Emma, want to help me with something? Emma perked up slightly. With what? I found some flour in the pantry. Thought we could make cookies. What kind? Whatever kind you want. Emma slid off her chair, suddenly interested. Chocolate chip? If we have chocolate chips, absolutely. They disappeared into the kitchen, and Liam heard Emma's voice, lighter now, asking questions about measurements and mixing bowls. Sophie had a way with her, a patience he didn't always have. He went to the window, peered through the blinds. The driveway was empty. Trees on all sides, dense enough that you couldn't see the road. Torres was outside somewhere, making rounds. Huang was in the basement, monitoring communications. He felt trapped, not just physically, in every way that mattered. His phone buzzed. The burner Webb had given them. He pulled it out, saw the text. Webb wanted to talk. Conference call in 10 minutes. Liam found Sophie in the kitchen, Emma up to her elbows in cookie dough. Webb's calling, he said. Sophie's smile faded. When? 10 minutes. She wiped her hands on a towel, looked at Emma. Can you finish mixing this? I'll be right back. Okay. They went to the living room. Torres came in from outside, Huang up from the basement. Everyone gathered around the laptop, waiting. At exactly 11, Webb's face appeared on the screen. He looked grim. We've got a problem.
Liam's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Richard Lane's legal team filed a motion this morning. They're claiming the documents Sophie provided were obtained illegally, fruit of the poison tree. They want everything thrown out. Sophie's face went white. Can they do that? They can try. And they've got a decent argument. You took those files without authorization. Technically, that's theft. I took them from my own father's company. I was a board member. I had access.
But not for the purpose of leaking them to the press and federal prosecutors. That's where they're going to hang their hat. Webb rubbed his eyes. Look, I'm not saying we're dead in the water, but this complicates things. How much? Enough that the grand jury hearing might get delayed. And if the judge sides with them, we lose our smoking gun. Liam leaned forward. What about Sophie's testimony? She was there. She saw what he did. Eyewitness testimony isn't enough. Not against someone like Richard Lane. We need the documents to corroborate her claims. Without them, it's her word against his. And he's got 50 character witnesses lined up to call her unstable. That's bullshit, Liam said. Doesn't matter if it's bullshit. It's effective. Webb looked at Sophie. They're also going to argue that you have a history of mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, previous hospitalizations. Sophie's jaw tightened. That was 5 years ago, after my mother died. I know, but they're going to use it. Paint you as someone with an axe to grind, someone who'd lie to hurt her father. I'm not lying. I believe you, but we need to make sure the jury does too. Webb leaned back. I'm going to fight this motion, but you need to prepare for the possibility that this gets messier before it gets better. The call ended. Sophie sat frozen, staring at the blank screen. They're going to destroy me, she said quietly. No, they're not. You heard him. They're going to drag up every bad day I ever had, every mistake I ever made, and use it to make me look crazy. Then we make sure the jury sees who you really are. She laughed, hollow. And who's that, Liam? Because I'm not sure anymore. He didn't have an answer for that. Torres cleared his throat. We should stay vigilant. If Lane's lawyers are moving this aggressively, it means he knows where we are in the process, and that makes you more vulnerable. You think he'll come after us here? Liam asked. I think he'll do whatever it takes to make this go away. That night, Liam couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the call in his head, Webb's words echoing. They want everything thrown out. Fruit of the poison tree. He didn't know much about the law, but he knew enough to understand that without those documents, they had nothing. He got up, went downstairs. Sophie was already there, sitting on the couch in the dark. Can't sleep either? He asked. No. He sat down next to her. What are you thinking about? Everything. What happens if we lose? If my father walks away from this? If all of this was for nothing? It won't be for nothing. You don't know that. No, but I know you tried. That's more than most people would do. She turned to look at him. What if trying isn't enough? Then we try harder. She shook her head. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You keep going until you can't anymore, and then you keep going anyway. Is that what you did? After your wife died? The question caught him off guard. He hadn't talked about Sarah in years. Hadn't let himself. How'd you know she died? Emma mentioned it once. Said her mom was gone. He was quiet for a long time. Yeah, she died. Cancer. 3 years ago. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry doesn't change anything. He looked down at his hands. The worst part wasn't losing her. It was watching her fade, knowing what was coming and not being able to stop it. She fought so hard, did everything the doctor said, and it didn't matter. How'd you keep going? Emma, I didn't have a choice. She needed me to be okay, so I pretended I was. Got up every morning, made breakfast, took her to school. Went through the motions until the motions felt normal again. He looked at Sophie. I'm still pretending most days, but that's what you do. You pretend until it's not pretending anymore. She reached over, took his hand. I'm glad you opened that door. That night. Me too. They sat there in the silence, holding on to each other like it was the only thing keeping them tethered. The next morning, Torres got a call. He stepped outside to take it, came back in 5 minutes later looking tense. What is it? Liam asked. Marissa Grant's been arrested. Sophie shot to her feet.
What?
Lane's legal team filed charges. Theft of proprietary information, conspiracy, criminal defamation. They're going after her hard. Can they do that? They're doing it. Sophie paced the room, hands shaking. This is my fault. I gave her those files. I dragged her into this. She knew the risks, Torres said. That doesn't make it okay. Liam stood up. What happens now? Depends on whether she flips. If Lane's people offer her a deal, drop the charges in exchange for her silence, she might take it. And if she doesn't, then she goes to trial and probably loses. Sophie sank into a chair, head in her hands. He's dismantling everything. Everyone who tried to help me, he's destroying them. Emma came into the room, stopped when she saw Sophie. Are you okay? Sophie looked up, forced a smile. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm fine. But she wasn't, and Emma knew it. 2 days later, Webb called again. This time, his expression was even grimmer. The motion to suppress was granted. Judge ruled that the documents were obtained improperly. They're out.
Liam felt the floor drop out from under him. So that's it? It's over? Not yet. We can appeal, but it'll take months, and in the meantime, Lane walks free. Sophie's face was stone. What about my testimony? We can still use it, but without the documents to back you up, it's going to be an uphill battle. His lawyers will shred you on the stand. Let them. Sophie.
I said let them. I don't care what they say about me. I don't care if they call me crazy or vindictive or whatever else they come up with. I'm telling the truth. That has to count for something. Webb was quiet for a moment. All right. We'll move forward, but you need to be ready for this. Really ready. I am. The call ended. Sophie stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the trees. Liam followed her. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her there had to be another way, but he couldn't think of one. We'll get through it, he said. She looked at him, eyes hard. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Or because you need to believe it. Maybe both, he thought, but he didn't say it. That night, everything changed. Liam was in the kitchen making sandwiches when he heard the sound. A crack, sharp and distinct. Then another. Gunfire. He dropped the knife, ran to the living room. Torres was at the window, gun drawn. Get down, Torres shouted. Liam dove to the floor, crawled toward the stairs. Emma! She appeared at the top, eyes wide, terrified. Stay there, he yelled. More gunfire, glass shattered. Torres returned fire, 3 quick shots. Huang came running up from the basement, weapon out. How many? At least 3, maybe more. Where's the girl? Upstairs. Sophie appeared next to Liam, breathing hard. What's happening? Lane found us. Her face went pale. How? Does it matter? Another volley of shots. Huang fired back, then ducked as the window exploded inward. We need to move, Torres shouted. Back door, now. Liam scrambled to his feet, ran up the stairs, grabbed Emma. She clung to him, shaking. It's okay, baby. I've got you. They ran down the stairs. Sophie was right behind them. Torres and Huang were laying down cover fire, shouting into their radios for backup. Go, Torres yelled. We'll hold them off. Liam didn't argue. He ran through the kitchen, kicked open the back door. Emma clutched tight against his chest. Sophie was right behind him. They hit the woods at a dead run. Behind them, the gunfire intensified, shouting, more breaking glass. Then an explosion, something big, something that shook the ground. Liam didn't stop. He ran deeper into the trees, branches tearing at his face, Emma sobbing into his shoulder. Dad, I'm scared. I know, just hold on. Sophie was beside him, gasping for air. Where are we going? Away from here. They'll follow us. Then we run faster. They ran until his lungs burned, until his legs felt like they'd give out. Finally, he stopped, pressed his back against a tree, tried to catch his breath. Emma was crying, hard, ugly sobs that broke his heart. Shh, baby, it's okay. We're okay. I want to go home. I know, soon. Sophie leaned against the tree next to him, looking back the way they'd come. Do you think Torres and Huang? I don't know.
We should go back. And get killed? No. But, no. He looked at her. We keep moving. That's the only option. She nodded, wiping her eyes.
They walked through the woods for hours. No destination, just away. Emma had stopped crying but wouldn't let go of him. Sophie was silent, her face set in a mask of determination. Eventually, they hit a road. 2 lanes, no traffic, middle of nowhere. Which way? Sophie asked. Liam looked both directions, picked left for no reason other than it felt slightly less terrifying. They walked along the shoulder, listening for cars. When one finally came, Liam stuck out his thumb. The car slowed. An older man, maybe 60, driving a beat-up pickup. "You folks okay?" he asked. "Car broke down a few miles back," Liam lied. "Any chance you're heading toward the city?" The man looked at them. Liam covered in dirt and scratches, Emma tear-streaked, Sophie pale and shaking, and something in his expression shifted. "Get in," he said. They climbed into the truck bed. The man didn't ask questions, just drove. 20 minutes later, they were in a small town. Gas station, diner, post office. The man pulled over. "This is as far as I'm going." "Thank you," Liam said. The man nodded, drove off. They stood on the sidewalk, lost, exhausted, scared. "Now what?" Sophie asked. Liam pulled out the burner phone. No signal. He walked until he found a payphone outside the gas station, fed it coins, dialed Webb's number. It rang and rang and no answer. He hung up, tried again. Nothing. "He's not answering," Liam said. "Try Torres." He tried. Same result. Sophie's voice was shaking. "They got to them. All of them." "We don't know that. What else would explain it?" He didn't have an answer. They walked to the diner, slid into a booth in the back. The waitress brought them water, looked at them with concern, but didn't ask questions. Liam ordered coffee and fries. Emma picked at them, not eating. Sophie stared out the window. "We can't stay here," she said quietly. "I know. And we can't go back." "I know that too." "So what do we do?" He looked at Emma, her small face pinched with fear. Looked at Sophie, who'd been running for weeks and was finally out of places to hide. "We finish this," he said. "How?" "We go to Lane. Directly." Sophie stared at him. "That's insane." "Maybe. But if he's already coming for us, if we've got no protection, no backup, no evidence, what's left to lose?" "Our lives. He's already trying to take those." She was quiet for a long time, then she nodded. "Okay, but we do it my way." "What's your way?" "We don't go in blind. We plan. We prepare. And we make sure that if we go down, we take him with us." He looked at her, saw the steel in her eyes, and knew she meant it. "All right, let's do it." They spent the rest of the day planning. Sophie knew her father's routines, his security, his weaknesses. She'd grown up in that world, knew how it worked. "He's hosting a charity gala in 3 days," she said. "Big event. Media, donors, politicians. He'll be there, and he'll be vulnerable." "Vulnerable how?" "He can't have armed security inside without raising questions, and he can't make me disappear in front of 500 witnesses. So we crashed the party." "We crashed the party." Liam shook his head. "This is crazy. You got a better idea?" He didn't. That night they slept in a cheap motel on the edge of town, Emma between them, finally sleeping. Liam lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how they'd gotten here. Sophie's voice broke the silence. "What if this doesn't work?" "Then at least we tried." "That's not very reassuring." "I'm not very good at reassuring." She laughed, quiet and bitter. "No, you're not." They lay there in the dark, and Liam felt the weight of everything pressing down. "I'm sorry," Sophie said. "For everything. For your life. For Emma's. For—" "Stop. Just stop." He turned to look at her. "You didn't make your father a monster. You didn't ask to be born into that family. You just tried to do the right thing, so stop apologizing." She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." "You are." "How do you know?" "Because you're still here, because you haven't given up. That's strength." She reached across Emma, found his hand in the dark. "Thank you." "For what?" for believing in me, even when I don't. He squeezed her hand. We're going to get through this. She nodded, but he could feel her trembling, and he realized he was trembling too. The next 2 days were a blur. They bought clothes from a thrift store, something that would let them blend in at a high society event. Sophie used cash she'd hidden in her jacket lining. Liam looked ridiculous in a suit that didn't fit right. Emma wore a dress she hated. Sophie coached them on how to act, how to move through that world without drawing attention. Keep your head up, don't look nervous, and whatever you do, don't run. Running gets you noticed. What if someone recognizes you? They will. That's the point. The night of the gala, they stood outside the venue, a massive hotel ballroom downtown, red carpet, photographers, security at every door. Liam looked at Sophie. Last chance to back out. She shook her head. No, we're doing this. Emma looked up at him. Are we going to be okay? He crouched down, met her eyes. I don't know, kiddo, but I promise I won't let anything happen to you. She hugged him tight. I love you, Dad. His throat tightened. I love you too. They walked toward the entrance. Sophie held her head high, every inch the daughter of a billionaire. Liam kept his hand on Emma's shoulder, trying to look like he belonged. At the door, security stopped them. Names? Sophie smiled, cool and confident. Sophie Lane, guest of honor. The guard's expression shifted. Surprise, then suspicion. He spoke into his radio, listened. Miss Lane, we weren't expecting you. I'm full of surprises. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Go ahead. They walked through the door into the glittering ballroom, and Liam knew there was no turning back now. The ballroom was enormous, dripping with wealth. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over tables covered in white linen. Men in tuxedos, women in designer gowns, champagne flowing like water. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. Everything polished, everything perfect, everything fake. Liam felt like an imposter. The suit pulled tight across his shoulders. The shoes pinched his feet. Emma clung to his side, overwhelmed by the noise and the crowd. Sophie moved through it all like she'd never left, spine straight, face calm. But Liam saw her hands. They were shaking. People turned as they walked past. Whispers started immediately. Someone recognized Sophie, and the news spread like wildfire. Heads swiveled. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. By the time they reached the center of the room, everyone was staring. A woman in a red dress approached, smile bright and false. Sophie Lane. What a surprise. Sophie met her gaze without flinching. Hello, Patricia. We thought you'd left the city. Your father said you were traveling. Did he? He's been so worried about you. We all have. Patricia's eyes flicked to Liam, then Emma, then back to Sophie. And who are your friends? Family, Sophie said simply. Patricia's smile tightened. How lovely. Well, I'm sure your father will be thrilled to see you. He's just over there, greeting guests. She gestured toward the far end of the room, where a small crowd had gathered around a man in an impeccable suit. Even from a distance, Liam could feel the power radiating off him. Richard Lane. He was tall, silver-haired, handsome in that ageless way rich men managed. His smile was warm, his handshake firm. People orbited around him like he was the sun. And maybe in this world, he was. Sophie's jaw tightened. Let's go. They started across the room. The crowd parted, people stepping aside, still staring. Liam kept his hand on Emma's shoulder, pulling her close. Richard saw them coming. His smile never faltered, but something changed in his eyes. Something cold and calculating. Sophie, he said, voice smooth as glass. What a wonderful surprise. Hello, Father. I didn't realize you were planning to attend. Last-minute decision. He looked at Liam, then Emma. And you've brought guests. Friends. They're with me. Richard's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course, any friend of my daughter's is welcome here. He extended his hand to Liam. Richard Lane. Liam hesitated, then shook it. The man's grip was firm, controlled. Liam Carter. A pleasure, Mr. Carter, and this must be your daughter. Emma pressed closer to Liam's leg. He put a protective hand on her head. Yeah, Emma. Beautiful name. Richard crouched down slightly, bringing himself to Emma's eye level. Are you having a good time, Emma? She didn't answer, just stared at him with wide, uncertain eyes. Richard straightened, turning his attention back to Sophie. Perhaps we could talk. Privately? No. Sophie, whatever you have to say, you can say it here. The people around them shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. The string quartet kept playing, oblivious. Richard's expression didn't change, but Liam saw the tension in his shoulders. Very well. I'm glad you're safe. When you disappeared, I was concerned. Were you? Of course, you're my daughter. And yet you sent men with guns after me. The crowd went silent. Someone gasped. Richard's smile finally cracked just slightly. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. Sophie's voice was steady now, growing stronger. You knew exactly where I was. You knew who I was with, and you sent people to kill us. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Richard looked around at the watching faces, the cameras in the back of the room, the reporters scribbling notes. His smile returned, softer now, almost sad. Sophie, I think you're confused. You've been under a lot of stress. Perhaps we should get you some help. I don't need help. I need you to admit what you've done. What I've done? He laughed, gentle, almost pitying. Sweetheart, I've done nothing but try to protect you. From yourself, if necessary. Protect me? You tried to have me killed. That's absurd. Is it? What about the safe house? What about Torres and Huang? What happened to them? Richard's expression was perfectly blank. I'm afraid I don't know who you're referring to. Sophie took a step closer. You're a liar and a criminal, and I have proof. Do you? Because from what I understand, any so-called evidence you had has been ruled inadmissible, obtained illegally, by you. He looked at the crowd, spreading his hands. My daughter has been through a difficult time. Her mother's death affected her deeply, and recently she's made some poor choices, aligned herself with the wrong people. I've been trying to help her, but she's resistant. Stop it. I'm not saying this to hurt you, Sophie. I'm saying it because I love you, and I want you to get better. I'm not sick. Then why are you making these wild accusations? Why are you standing here in front of all these people trying to destroy me? Because someone has to. Richard's mask slipped for just a second. Liam saw it, the flash of rage, quickly buried. That's enough. No, it's not. Sophie turned to the crowd, raising her voice. My father has been running illegal operations for years. Money laundering, bribery, intimidation. He's paid people to make problems disappear. And when I tried to expose him, he came after me. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras flashed. Reporters pushed forward. Richard held up a hand, silencing them. As I said, my daughter is unwell. This is a family matter, not a public spectacle. It became public the moment you tried to kill me. I have done no such thing. His voice was harder now, the warmth gone. But if you continue down this path, if you continue making baseless accusations, I will have no choice but to pursue legal action, defamation, slander. Do you understand? Sophie didn't flinch. Sue me. See what happens. Sophie, I'm done being afraid of you. The silence was suffocating. Everyone waited, watching the standoff between father and daughter. Then Richard smiled, slow, cold, victorious. Very well. If that's how you want to play this. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. My daughter is going through a difficult period, and I had hoped we could resolve this privately. But since she's chosen to air her grievances publicly, let me be clear. Sophie has no evidence. No proof. Nothing but paranoid delusions and a grudge she's been nursing since her mother passed away. I've tried to help her. I've offered her therapy, support, anything she needs. But she's refused, and now she's here, trying to destroy my reputation with lies. They're not lies, Sophie said, but her voice was quieter now, less certain. Then prove it. Show everyone your evidence. She opened her mouth, closed it. It was ruled inadmissible. How convenient. Because you paid off the judge. Another accusation with no proof. Richard shook his head, the picture of a grieving father. I'm sorry you had to witness this. My daughter needs help, and I intend to make sure she gets it, even if she fights me every step of the way. He turned away, dismissing her. The crowd began to disperse, the show over. Liam saw Sophie's face crumble, saw the defeat settle in.
and something inside him snapped. "He's lying," Liam said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Richard stopped, turned slowly. "Excuse me?" "I said you're lying. About all of it." "Mr. Carter, I understand you're trying to support Sophie, but I was there, at the safe house, when your men came." Liam took a step forward. "They had guns, automatic weapons. They shot up the place, tried to kill us. Federal agents died protecting us, and you're standing here acting like it never happened." Richard's expression didn't change. "I think you're mistaken." "No, I'm not." "Then perhaps you're complicit in my daughter's delusions. Or perhaps you're exactly what she says you are." The room was dead silent now. Richard studied Liam, cold calculation in his eyes. "Be very careful, Mr. Carter. You're making accusations you can't prove, against a man with considerable resources." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Liam felt Emma tugging on his hand, frightened. He looked down at her, saw the fear in her eyes, and felt his resolve waver. But then Sophie spoke. "He's not lying, and neither am I." Richard sighed, like a man dealing with a petulant child. "Sophie, I know you think you've won, that you've silenced everyone, bought everyone, scared everyone into submission, but you missed something." "And what's that?" She pulled out her phone. "I recorded everything, every conversation we had, every threat you made. It's all here." Richard's face went still. "That's illegal." "So is attempted murder." "No court will accept it. Maybe not, but the press will." She held up the phone for the cameras. "And once it's out there, once everyone hears what you really are, it won't matter what the courts say. Your reputation will be destroyed." For the first time, Richard looked genuinely rattled. "You're bluffing. Try me." They stared at each other, locked in a silent battle of wills. The crowd watched, transfixed. Then Richard lunged. He moved fast, faster than Liam expected, grabbing for the phone. Sophie jerked back, but he caught her wrist, yanked her toward him. Liam didn't think. He just reacted. Stepped between them, shoved Richard back. Richard stumbled, caught himself. His face was red now, the mask completely gone. "You don't know what you're doing." "Yeah, I do." Security appeared from the edges of the room, moving toward them. Richard held up a hand, stopping them. "Leave, now, before this gets worse." "Or what?" Liam asked. "You'll have us killed? In front of 500 witnesses?" "I'll have you arrested. Assault, trespassing, harassment. Take your pick." "Do it. See what happens when Sophie releases those recordings." Richard's jaw tightened. "She won't." "Why not?" "Because she knows what I'm capable of. She knows I don't make idle threats." Sophie stepped forward, holding the phone high. "Neither do I." She pressed a button. The phone screen lit up, and from the speakers scattered around the ballroom, a voice began to play. Richard's voice. "Sophie, sweetheart, you're going to stop asking questions, because if you don't, I'm going to have to make some very difficult decisions, and I don't want to do that, not to you." Sophie's voice, younger, scared. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you, you disappear, just like everyone else who got in my way." The recording played on. More conversations, more threats, more evidence of the man behind the mask. The crowd listened in stunned silence. Richard's face went white, then red, then something beyond rage. "Turn it off!" Sophie didn't. "I said turn it off!" He lunged again, but Liam was ready this time, caught him by the shoulders, held him back. "It's over," Liam said. "Let it go." Richard struggled, then stopped. His breathing was ragged, his eyes wild. "You have no idea what you've done." "Yeah, I do." The security guards moved in, but they weren't reaching for Liam. They were reaching for Richard, because standing at the entrance to the ballroom, flanked by a dozen federal agents, was Marcus Webb. "Richard Lane," Webb said, voice carrying across the room. "You're under arrest." Richard stared at him, disbelief and fury warring on his face. "On what grounds?" "Conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. Should I keep going?" "You can't prove any of that." Webb held up a tablet. "Actually, we can. Thanks to your daughter's recordings and the testimony of 2 federal agents who survived your attack on the safe house, and about 50 other things we've been building while you thought you were untouchable." The agents moved forward,
pulling Richard's arms behind his back, snapping on handcuffs. Richard looked at Sophie, and for a moment Liam saw something that might have been pain. "You did this. You did this," Sophie said quietly. "I just made sure everyone knew." They led him away. The crowd parted, silent, watching the man who'd owned this city get dragged out in handcuffs. Liam felt Emma's arms wrap around his waist, felt her shaking. He picked her up, held her close. "It's okay, baby. It's over." Sophie stood frozen, staring at the spot where her father had been. Webb approached, his expression softer now. "You all right?" She nodded, though tears were streaming down her face. "Yeah, I think so." "You did good, both of you." Liam looked at him. "Torres and Huang? Alive? Barely. They're in the hospital, but they'll make it." Relief flooded through him. "Thank you." Webb nodded. "We'll need statements from all of you, but for now, you're safe. He can't hurt you anymore." Sophie wiped her eyes. "What happens next? Trial. He's going to fight this with everything he has, but between the recordings, the financial evidence, and the witness testimony, we've got him. He's done." She nodded, but she didn't look relieved, just tired. Webb turned to go, then paused. "For what it's worth, what you did tonight took guts. Most people would have run." "We tried running," Liam said. "Didn't work." Webb smiled slightly. "No, I guess it didn't." He walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the emptying ballroom. The reporters were still there, cameras still rolling, but Liam didn't care. He set Emma down, turned to Sophie. She looked at him, and her expression cracked. All the fear, all the exhaustion, all the grief she'd been holding back came pouring out. Liam stepped forward, pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing, and he held her while she fell apart. Emma wrapped her arms around both of them. "Is she okay?" "She will be," Liam said. "She just needs a minute." They stood there, three broken people holding each other up, while the world buzzed around them. Eventually, Sophie pulled back, wiping her face. "I'm sorry, I just..." "Don't apologize. I didn't think it would feel like this. I thought I'd feel relieved or vindicated, but I just feel empty." "Yeah, that's normal. You just destroyed your whole life to do the right thing. It's allowed to hurt." She nodded, then looked at Emma. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Emma nodded. "Are you?" Sophie almost smiled. "I will be." They left the ballroom together, stepping out into the cool night air. The city stretched out around them, lights glittering, traffic humming, everything the same as it had been an hour ago. Everything completely different. "What do we do now?" Sophie asked. Liam looked at her, at Emma, at the life they'd somehow built in the wreckage. "We figure it out, together." She took his hand. Together. They walked down the street, away from the chaos, away from the cameras, into whatever came next. And for the first time in weeks, Liam felt like they might actually make it. The next few days were a blur of depositions and interviews. Webb's team worked around the clock, building the case against Richard Lane. The recording Sophie had played at the gala went viral. Every news outlet picked it up. Suddenly, the man who'd been untouchable was headline news, his empire crumbling in real time. Marissa Grant was released from custody, charges dropped. She showed up at the hotel where Liam, Sophie, and Emma were staying, looking exhausted but triumphant. "You did it," she said to Sophie. "We did it," Sophie corrected. Marissa smiled. "Yeah, we did." She handed Sophie a folder. "Advance copy. My story runs tomorrow. Front page." Sophie opened it, skimmed the article. Her hands trembled. "This is everything. His entire operation, laid out in black and white. By the time this hits the stands, there won't be a corner of his empire left standing." Sophie closed the folder, handed it back. "Thank you." "No, thank you. You gave me the story of my career and you took down a monster. That's not nothing." After Marissa left, Sophie sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. "You okay?" Liam asked. "I don't know. I keep waiting to feel something. Relief, maybe. Or closure. But I just feel numb." "That'll pass." "Will it?" "Eventually, probably." He sat down next to her. "Look, I'm not going to tell you this gets easier. You just took down your father. That's going to mess with your head for a while. But you survived. That's what matters." She looked at him.
What happens when the trial's over? When all of this is done? I don't know. What do you want to happen? She was quiet for a long time. I want a life. A real one. Not running, not hiding, not looking over my shoulder. Just normal.
Normal's overrated. She almost smiled. Maybe, but I'd like to try it anyway. Emma appeared in the doorway, rabbit under her arm.
Can we go home now?
Liam looked at Sophie. She nodded. Yeah, kiddo, we can go home. They packed up the hotel room, checked out, drove back to the city. The apartment was exactly as they left it, dusty, cluttered, the flickering light still broken. But it felt like home. Emma ran to her room, relieved to be back in familiar territory. Liam stood in the kitchen, looking at the burnt pot still sitting in the sink from the night Sophie had collapsed at his door. It felt like a lifetime ago. Sophie came up beside him. Can I stay? Just for a little while? Until I figure things out. Yeah, you can stay. She smiled, real and warm. Thank you.
He looked at her, this woman who'd walked into his life bleeding and desperate, and somehow made him remember how to fight. You know, he said, for someone who just took down a billionaire crime lord, you're pretty terrible at taking compliments. She laughed. I'll work on it. They stood there in the kitchen, the flickering light buzzing overhead, and for the first time in a long time, Liam felt something like hope. The trial started 6 weeks later. By then, Richard Lane's empire had already begun to collapse. Investors pulled out, board members resigned, properties were seized. The man who'd once controlled half the city was now fighting just to stay out of prison. Sophie sat in the courtroom every single day, front row, watching. Liam came when he could, bringing Emma on weekends when school was out. They'd sit together, a small unit of support in a sea of strangers and cameras. The prosecution laid it out methodically. Wire transfers to offshore accounts, payments to individuals who'd later disappeared, testimony from former employees who'd finally found the courage to speak, the recording Sophie had made, played in full for the jury. And through it all, Richard Lane sat stone-faced, his expensive lawyers arguing technicalities and reasonable doubt. But the evidence was overwhelming. On the 15th day Sophie took the stand, she wore a simple gray dress, no jewelry, hair pulled back. She looked younger than her 26 years, vulnerable. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. The prosecutor walked her through it, her discovery of the illegal operations, her attempts to go to the authorities, her father's threats, the night she ran. And why did you run, Ms. Lane? Because he told me he'd make me disappear, just like everyone else who got in his way. And I believed him. Why? Because I'd seen the evidence. I knew what he was capable of. She looked at her father. And because he's my father, I knew he'd do it. Richard's lawyer stood for cross-examination, all false sympathy and sharp questions. Ms. Lane, isn't it true that you've struggled with mental health issues? I went through a difficult period after my mother died. Yes. Difficult enough to require hospitalization? For 3 weeks, 5 years ago. And during that time you were diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety? Yes. Isn't it possible that your accusations against your father are the result of those ongoing mental health struggles? That you've misinterpreted his concern for control? Sophie's jaw tightened. No. No? You're certain? I'm certain that my father threatened to kill me. I'm certain that he sent armed men to a federal safe house. I'm certain that people have died because of his actions. That's not a misinterpretation. That's reality. The lawyer smiled, condescending. But you can't prove any of those deaths were his fault, can you? I can prove the payments. I can prove the threats. The rest is for the jury to decide. Indeed it is. The cross-examination went on for hours. They tried to paint her as unstable, vindictive, a daughter with a grudge. But Sophie didn't break. She answered every question, met every insinuation with calm certainty. When she finally stepped down, Liam saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also something else. Strength. He waited for her outside the courtroom. When she emerged, she looked like she might collapse. You did good, he said. I feel like I got hit by a truck. That's what good feels like sometimes. She almost smiled. Where's Emma? At school. I told her I'd pick her up after. Can I come? You want to go to an elementary school pickup line? I want to do something normal, please. So they drove to Emma's school together, parked among the minivans and SUVs, waited with the other parents. Sophie leaned against the car, face tilted toward the sun, eyes closed. "This is nice," she said. "Waiting in a parking lot? Being nobody, just another person picking up a kid from school." The bell rang. Children poured out, a chaotic stream of backpacks and noise. Emma spotted them, lit up, ran over. "Sophie, you came!" Sophie crouched down, hugged her. "Couldn't miss it." "How was court?" "Long." "How was school?" "Also long, but we did art. I made you something." Emma dug in her backpack, pulled out a drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's you, and Dad, and me." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "It's perfect." "You can keep it." "Thank you." They drove home, Emma chattering about her day, Sophie listening with genuine interest, Liam navigating traffic and thinking about how strange and fragile this thing they'd built was. This makeshift family, held together by circumstance and choice in equal measure. Back at the apartment, Sophie helped Emma with homework while Liam made dinner. Something simple, spaghetti, garlic bread. The kind of meal that felt like comfort. They ate together at the small table, Emma telling stories about her classmates, Sophie asking questions, Liam watching them both and feeling something settle in his chest. Something that felt almost like peace. After dinner, Emma went to her room to read. Sophie helped Liam with the dishes. "I've been thinking," she said, scrubbing a plate. "About after." "After what?" "After the trial. After everything's settled." "What about it?" "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I have money. My mother left me a trust that my father couldn't touch. It's enough to live on. But I don't have a career, don't have skills beyond navigating charity galas and board meetings. I don't even have friends. Not real ones." Liam dried a glass, set it on the counter. "So what do you want to do?" "I want to help people, the way you helped me." "I didn't help you. I just didn't slam the door in your face." "That's more than most people did." She turned to face him. "I want to do something that matters. Something real." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." He believed her. The trial lasted another 3 weeks. Witnesses came and went, expert testimony about financial crimes and shell corporations. Character witnesses for both sides. Richard's lawyers fought hard, but the evidence was insurmountable. On the final day, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, Sophie was sitting between Liam and Emma, holding both their hands so tight it hurt. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find?" "Guilty." Sophie's breath caught. "On the charge of money laundering?" "Guilty." "On the charge of obstruction of justice?" "Guilty." Count after count, guilty. All of them. Richard Lane sat motionless as his world ended. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later. When the bailiff led Richard away in handcuffs, he looked at Sophie one last time. She met his gaze, didn't look away. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. "Ms. Lane, how do you feel about the verdict?" Sophie stopped, squared her shoulders. "I feel like justice was served. That's all." "Do you have any regrets?" "About exposing the truth? No, about the way things had to happen every day. What's next for you?" "I'm going to rebuild. Not my father's empire, my life on my own terms." She pushed through the crowd, Liam and Emma flanking her, until they reached the car. Inside, with the doors closed and the noise muffled, Sophie finally let herself breathe. "It's really over," she said. "Yeah, it is." She started crying, not the desperate, broken sobs from before. Quieter, like grief and relief all mixed together. Emma reached over from the back seat, put her small hand on Sophie's shoulder. "It's okay. We're here." Sophie covered Emma's hand with her own. "I know, thank you." They drove home in silence, the city passing by the windows, and Liam thought about endings, how they never felt the way you expected. Not clean, not final, just a shift from one kind of hard to another. Sentencing came on a Thursday. 25 years, no possibility of parole for 15. Richard Lane would likely die in prison. Sophie didn't attend. She said she'd said everything she needed to say on the stand. Liam understood. Instead, they spent the day at a park near the apartment. Emma on the swings, Sophie pushing her, both of them laughing. Normal, ordinary, exactly what Sophie had wanted. That night, after Emma was asleep, Sophie and Liam sat on the couch with the TV on low, not really watching. I found an apartment, Sophie said. Liam felt something drop in his stomach. Yeah? Just across the hall, 3C. It's small, but it's enough. I put down a deposit today. You don't have to leave. I know. But I should. You and Emma need your space, and I need to figure out who I am when I'm not running or hiding or fighting. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her to stay, but he understood. When? End of the month. That's soon. Yeah. They sat in silence for a while. Then Sophie spoke again. I enrolled in school, community college. I'm going to study social work. Liam looked at her surprised. Really? Really? I want to help people who are running, who are scared, who don't know where to go. I want to be the person who opens the door instead of closing it. You'll be good at that. I hope so. She looked at him. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You know that, right? Yeah, well, I couldn't have remembered how to be a person without you, so I guess we're even. She smiled. I don't think that's how it works. Sure it is. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He put his arm around her, and they stayed like that until the credits rolled on whatever they weren't watching. The next few weeks passed quickly. Sophie moved her things across the hall, not that she had much. They painted the walls, assembled furniture from flat boxes, made the space hers. Emma helped, offering opinions on colors and where things should go. She seemed excited that Sophie would be so close. So you'll still come over for dinner? Emma asked, sitting cross-legged on Sophie's new couch. Every night you'll have me. And you'll still help with my homework? If you want me to. And we can still watch movies together? Sophie pulled her into a hug. Yes, sweetheart. All of it. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Liam watched from the doorway, feeling that strange mix of loss and gratitude. Sophie was leaving, but staying. Moving on, but not away. It was the best possible outcome, and it still hurt a little. On her first official night in the new apartment, Sophie invited them over for dinner. She'd learned to cook over the past few months. Simple things, but edible. They ate pasta and salad and garlic bread that was only slightly burnt. After Emma went back across the hall to get ready for bed, Liam helped Sophie clean up. This is nice, he said. The apartment? All of it. This weird thing we've built. Yeah, it is. She dried her hands, turned to face him. Can I ask you something? Sure. What are we doing? What do you mean? I mean, are we friends? Are we family? Are we something else? She looked nervous. I don't know what to call this. Liam thought about it. Thought about the night she'd shown up bleeding at his door. Thought about everything that had happened since. The running, the hiding, the fighting, the slow building of trust and connection, and something he'd thought he'd never feel again. I don't know either, he said honestly. But whatever it is, it works. So maybe we don't need to call it anything. She smiled, relieved. Okay, we won't call it anything. Okay. But later that night, lying in bed, Liam admitted to himself what he'd been avoiding. He was falling for her, had been for a while, and he had no idea what to do about it. Because Sophie was still healing, still figuring out who she was outside of her father's shadow, and he was a single dad with a dead-end job and a daughter who needed stability. So he did nothing, just let it sit there, unspoken, while they fell into a routine. Sophie went to class 3 days a week, came over for dinner most nights, helped Emma with homework, watched movies with them on weekends. She got a part-time job at a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors. She was good at it, the director told Liam once when he stopped by to pick her up. A natural. Months passed. Sophie's hair grew out. The dark circles under her eyes faded. She started smiling more, real smiles, not the careful ones she'd worn before. Emma adored her, started calling her Aunt Sophie without anyone suggesting it. Sophie's face the first time Emma said it was something Liam wished he'd photographed. One night, 6 months after the trial ended, Liam and Sophie sat on his couch after Emma had gone to bed. They'd been watching a documentary about wrongful convictions, Sophie's choice. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Regret what? Turning him in, destroying your whole life to do the right thing. She thought about it. Sometimes, when I think about what I lost, the relationship I'll never have with him, the family that sided with him, the life I could have had if I'd just kept quiet. She looked at him. But then I think about what I gained. This, you and Emma, a purpose, a chance to build something real instead of just inheriting something rotten. So no, I don't regret it. Even though it was hard. Especially because it was hard. The hard things are the ones that matter. He reached over, took her hand. She laced her fingers through his. Can I tell you something? She asked. Yeah. I think I'm falling in love with you. His heart stopped. Sophie, you don't have to say anything. I just needed to say it out loud because I've spent so much of my life hiding how I feel, pretending to be someone I'm not, and I don't want to do that anymore, especially not with you. He looked at her, this woman who'd crashed into his life and turned everything upside down, and felt something click into place. I'm falling for you too, he said. Have been for a while. Yeah? Yeah, I just didn't know if... you've been through so much, and Emma loves me. I love her. And I love you. She squeezed his hand. So if you're worried about whether this works, don't be. We'll make it work. He pulled her close, kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper, like they were both finally letting themselves have something they'd been afraid to want. When they pulled apart, Sophie was smiling. So what do we call this now? I don't know. What do you want to call it? How about the beginning? The beginning of what? Everything. And it was. They took it slow, because they had time now. No one chasing them, no immediate threat, just the everyday work of building a life together. Sophie finished her degree, got a full-time job at the nonprofit. Liam got a promotion at work. Nothing huge, but enough to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Emma thrived, her world stable for the first time in years. They moved in together a year later, a bigger place with room for all of them. Sophie and Liam in one room, Emma in another, and a third that Sophie turned into an office. Emma started calling Sophie Mom 6 months after that. It happened naturally, without fanfare. Just a slip one morning at breakfast. Mom, can you help me with my science project? Sophie froze, looked at Liam. He nodded. Of course, sweetheart, Sophie said, voice thick. Later, when Emma was at school, Sophie cried. Happy tears this time. I never thought I'd get this, she said. A family, a real one. Well, you've got it now. Yeah, I do. 2 years after the trial, Marissa Grant published a book about the case. She interviewed Sophie, Liam, even Emma with their permission. It became a bestseller, sparked conversations about corruption and power, and the people brave enough to stand against it. Sophie used her portion of the proceeds to start a foundation, Lane Foundation for Whistleblower Protection and Support. She ran it from her office, helped people who were trying to expose wrongdoing but didn't have the resources or support to do it safely. It grew fast. Within a year, they'd helped a dozen people. Within 2, 50. Sophie became known in those circles, the woman who'd taken down her own father and lived to build something better from the ruins. But she didn't do it for recognition. She did it because she knew what it felt like to be alone and scared and out of options. And she never wanted anyone else to feel that way if she could help it. Liam watched her throw herself into the work, watched her thrive, and felt proud in a way that had nothing to do with him. This was all her choice, her strength, her refusal to let what her father had done define her. 5 years after that night she'd collapsed at his door, they got married. Small ceremony, just close friends and Emma. Sophie wore a simple white dress. Liam wore a suit that actually fit. Emma was the flower girl, took her job very seriously. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Emma raised her hand. Everyone laughed. The officiant asked what her objection was. I just want to say that you guys took long enough. I've been waiting for this since I was 7. More laughter. Sophie was crying, happy tears. Liam was grinning. Objection noted, the officiant said. Overruled. They said their vows, promised to love each other through the hard things and the ordinary things and everything in between, kissed while everyone cheered. At the reception, Emma gave a toast. I used to think family was just the people you were born with,
But then Sophie showed up, and she taught me that family is who you choose, who shows up when things are scary, who stays when it would be easier to leave. Dad and Sophie did that for each other, and they did it for me. So I'm really glad they're making it official, because they've been family for a long time already. There wasn't a dry eye in the room.
Later, dancing with Sophie while Emma spun circles with her friends, Liam thought about beginnings and endings and everything in between. "You happy?" Sophie asked. "Yeah. You?" "More than I ever thought possible." "Good." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For opening the door that night." "Thank you for knocking." She smiled against his chest. "We make a good team." "Yeah, we do." And they did. Through everything that came after, the ordinary struggles and the unexpected joys, the arguments and the makeups, the hard days and the beautiful ones, they built a life. Not perfect, never perfect, but real, honest, theirs. Emma grew up strong and confident, went to college, studied law, came back to work at Sophie's foundation, said she wanted to help people the way her mom had helped others. Sophie's foundation expanded, helped hundreds of people, made real change in how whistleblowers were protected and supported. Liam finally fixed that flickering light in the kitchen, then broke it again trying to install a dimmer switch. Sophie laughed at him, helped him fix it properly. They had a good life, the kind you earn, not the kind you're handed. And sometimes, late at night, when everyone was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Sophie would think about her father, about the man he'd been and the man he'd become, about the choice she'd made and everything it had cost. She didn't regret it, but she carried it, the weight of it, the knowledge that doing the right thing didn't make the hurt go away. But she also carried the other things, the love she'd found, the family she'd built, the people she'd helped, the life she'd chosen instead of the one she'd been born into. And when she weighed it all together, the good and the hard and the messy in between, she knew she'd made the right choice. Not because it was easy, but because it was hers. One evening, 15 years after that stormy night, Liam and Sophie sat on their porch watching the sunset. Emma was inside making dinner, her own family visiting for the weekend. "You ever think about how different things would be," Liam asked, "if you hadn't knocked on my door that night?" "All the time." And I'm glad I did. Even knowing everything that came after, the fear, the running, the trial, all of it, I'd do it again. "Why?" "Because it led me here. To you. To Emma. To a life I actually want to live." She took his hand. "Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. You just have to be brave enough to keep going." He squeezed her hand. "That's pretty wise." "I've had time to think about it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the light fade. And Liam thought about courage. Real courage. Not the kind in movies where heroes save the day without consequences, but the kind Sophie had shown. The kind that meant standing up even when you're terrified, doing the right thing even when it costs you everything, choosing honesty over comfort, truth over safety. That was the lesson, he realized. Not that good always wins or that justice is guaranteed, but that sometimes, if you're brave enough and stubborn enough and lucky enough to find people who will stand with you, you can face the impossible and come out the other side. Changed, scarred, but alive. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. "I love you," he said. Sophie smiled. "I love you too." Inside, Emma called them for dinner. They stood, brushed themselves off, went to join their family. And the life they'd built together, hard-won and imperfect and real, continued on. Because that's what courage looks like in the end. Not a single moment of heroism, but the daily choice to keep building, keep loving, keep showing up even when it's hard. That's the story. Not the fight or the victory, but what comes after. The ordinary days, the quiet mornings, the shared meals and the inside jokes and the slow accumulation of moments that add up to a life worth fighting for, worth risking everything for, worth choosing again and again and again. That's what Sophie learned, what Liam learned, what they taught Emma. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. It's showing up, it's opening the door when someone's standing outside in the rain, bleeding and desperate, and choosing to help instead of walking away. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it breaks your heart. But it's also the most important thing you'll ever do, and in the end, that's all any of us can hope for. To be brave enough to open the door, to let someone in, to build something beautiful out of the wreckage,
To choose love over fear.
truth over lies, courage over comfort, to be simply human, flawed and struggling and doing our best. That's the story. That's all of our stories, if we're lucky. And Sophie and Liam and Emma, they got their happy ending, not because everything was perfect, but because they chose each other every single day and built something that mattered together.